Thank you.
And it's a special pleasure for me to introduce our next speaker, Eva Ferro. At the moment, she is finishing her philological doctoral degree at the University of Freiburg under the supervision of Felix Heinzer, isn't it? Known to everybody of us. For me, her curriculum vitae looks extremely interesting since she worked about hagiographical themes which repeatedly turn up in saints' offices, and I worked about approximately the same material on and on. So, and it's really intriguing to see the philological point of view on the same questions. I'm now looking forward very much to hear her presentation, please.
Thanks. I think I'll be very brief. If that's okay, because I don't have a ready-made presentation, but I will just like to introduce into what moved me into doing this research. First of all, thank you very much for being here. It's really an honor, and I also do feel a bit underqualified, but still. So at the beginning of my research, I was divided between two things. I knew I was in a disciplinary tradition, a philological tradition of the medieval Latin, but I also knew that I was interested into the symbolical meanings of liturgy. Because since liturgy had such a central place in the life of medieval people, I also wanted to study it for its symbolical meanings. But I decided to stick to a more philological work based on an edition of the sources. And my interest, I started to study the cult of the place where I come from, like Professor Baroffi just encouraged us to do, which is Zeno of Verona. And I'm trying to prepare a study of the development of this cult, and in form of an edition of the text. I'm not a musicologist, so I can't do the music, but if somebody wants in, please let me know. I will give you my materials. Maybe we can do something together. But exactly, so I wanted to study this cult and decided to do a philological work. So the only medium that I knew was Analecta Hymnica Medievi. So that's where I went for. And there I realized how the Analecta were treating the sources. And I don't know, I found poems. So I found, a series of verses, but I didn't find the liturgy. I didn't find the rite, and that's what actually most interested me. I mean, what interested me was not just to do a literary analysis of this work, but was how was it lived, how was it structured. I mean, there was a whole feast going on behind those things, and I wanted to study them. And at the beginning of my research, I tried to put it all together. So I tried to do a critical edition of the texts, but also to take into account this performance, the forms of the performance, and that was not doable. So it was just too much. So I decided to divide my steps. And in the first step, I do pretty much normal, modified actually critical edition, because I do not reconstruct a ur-text. I propose all the recensiones of the different offices. So I do an edition for the cursus monasticus, an edition for the cursus romanus, getrennt, so divided. And I also insert some synoptical elements. So where the texts are all the same, I put it in one line. Where the textual tradition is different, I put synoptical columns. Could I show it for a second? Historia, maybe I'm here.
Just find it. Take your time.
Historia text, maybe.
Maybe this one.
Maybe this one. Found it.
You should find it. Good.
Yeah. I wrote down too much. Where am I? Oh, there's 6. So maybe I'll do page.
Yeah.
No, is there a page?
There is one. Right.
Okay, thank you. Exactly. And you can see, this is maybe this one was a good one. You can see I put in the same column, the same textual tradition, but there are different columns where the textual traditions are different. where the column, the spalte is just one, is because all the testimonies have the same textual tradition. So this is the first part of my work, a modified critical edition of the sources, and actually all the sources I could find. I just didn't do the historia, I also do the hymns, I do the sequences, and at a certain point I realized Professor Varoffe just said, I also had to take into account the mess formulas. And I do not edit them because somebody, Segala, has already done it. Exactly. Yeah. And so I use his text, the text he works about, to integrate into my study, of course. But I tried, first of all, to really find all the material that I have for Zeno and to edit the different part of the cults. So for the office, the sequences, the hymns, and the lectiones, actually also decided to edit the lectiones. But since there are a lot of manuscripts with the Vita of Zeno, I decided to only concentrate on the manuscript that I can actually know, and you will probably be critical about this, that I know that they were used liturgically. So where I know the lectiones, the divisions into lectiones, that is a decision I made. Right now I'm thinking about editing the first, like the earliest sources of the Vita from the 9th, 10th, and maybe 11th century. They are not that much. To identify the earliest bulk of the Vita for Zeno, but we'll see. And that's the first step of my work. And then I realized that was not enough for me to study the cult. To study the cult of Zeno, I needed to see how it was done. I needed to see where were the texts placed, how did they interact together, which lectio came, what responsory, which psalm was sung with antiphons. So I decided, and it's a tool more for me than for the reader, to assemble it in a table, una ricostruzione, what I call a reconstruction, where I, based on a manuscript transmission, so I firstly, since liturgical manuscript always often says where they were used, when they were used, from where, who used them, and so I screen them and try to find manuscripts that were used in the same place for the same time for this particular cult, for Zeno, and I put them together in a reconstruction. Like I put, maybe in the one example I can show you, I tried to do a partial reconstruction because sometimes I don't have all the manuscripts, so I cannot reconstruct all the liturgy. But I tried to reconstruct the texts that I have and insert them into the liturgical structure for San Zeno Maggiore in the 12th century, 11th, 12th century. So here I found a hymnary, a very famous hymnary 102 or 109, the Biblioteca Capitolare, but I also found collection of Vita, where the Vita of Zeno, the longer version of the Vita of Zeno, is also there. It's divided into lections, so I knew where to put the lections. So I put the lections, the lectiones in this case. Did I put it? Yes, I put them in. The hymns I put here, depending from the time where they were sung, was it Lord's hymn, and so on. And so I'm trying to do this, and this is the text that I then kind of analyze for my study of the cult of Zeno. I just do not study the text, I try to study the text in their liturgical, geographical, and historical, institutional contexts based on these tables. And I think that's pretty much all from me. Yes, I'm still working on this reconstruction because, as I told Niels yesterday, I'm not very quite satisfied with it. I think I have to go all the way in this reconstruction, so I put the repetitions in, put the antiphons twice, if they are sung twice, to really take the performance into account. Cioè, capisci cosa intendo?
Sì, ma bisogna vedere in quale epoca.
Sì, I do different epochs. So I have the earliest sources, I do divide them from centuries, so I don't put all together.
Perché a un certo momento, prima del Salmo, cantavano solo una parola.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one of the difficulties. I have to study about the historical development of liturgy in the phases. It's a lot of work. I don't know. Maybe I think I'm done.
Thank you, Eva.
You're welcome.
Very good. Yeah, and this is pretty much what we try to do in the Historia series, but without talking too much about the lessons, which is a dimension in itself. So I myself came across lately about the Vitae or Passiones in honor of Samoris and the Theban Legion. There are about 200 manuscripts which are now edited at Freiburg. And then this is nearly not manageable for one person. When you try to edit that. And Barbara has certainly something to say from her point of view.
I just want to caution you against the desire to be exhaustive. I have spent almost 3 years on one office, 200 sources, more than 70 churches.
I
Sorry,
see.
200 churches, 200 sources, more than 70 churches. And looking back, this could have been maybe done in an easier way.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
And I thought about every single category in Dr. Garofio's list. So right now the book is 350,000 words. So don't do it.
Yeah, I know. I've been, trimming and trimming and trimming, but thank you.
It has to do with lifelong working process you are talking about. So the question is what to publish. Huh?
Yeah,
you can spend your whole life with Zeno, maybe, if it is interesting enough. Certainly it is. Additional questions? One word from my side.
Yes.
On your representations. I think it's not too comfortable to read if you have 1.5 distance between the lines. You can really compress, make it a little bit easier to read.
Yeah.
Or even, I wonder whether you reflected about using maybe computer technology to let it pop up in case you click on it also.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I thought about it. I can't do it on my own. I mean, I can't.
No, but maybe.
But that would be actually the perfect way to edit these kind of things. The Historia, like in a computer-based edition where you can see the different versions. Where you can confront version from the dioceses. I don't know, of Verona and from Bad Reichenhall. That would be great. Like where you have like columns that you can select or not select, something like that.
Yeah. I always think we have to think by visual means. So how is this transported or communicated to a larger public?